Hey, it's the Midnight Raven, and today we are doing another graveyard journal. And this time we're going to walk around the graveyard while I discuss the topic. So, the topic today is what would you do if you knew when you were going to die? Now, this topic has come to my mind. As you all know, my nan is suffering from very far set dementia and has a very limited time left on this earth. Now, we have taken the family decision not to tell my nan that she is dying. Currently, they are giving her a diagnosis of possibly a few weeks, depending on how strong she is. Now, the decision to not tell her wasn't taken lightly, but we do feel that telling her right now, it wouldn't make a difference. She doesn't remember things, she's forgetting names, she's very angry and aggressive. And we believe that telling her, you're going to die when she can't remember it the next day or the next hour isn't going to change what's happening to her. And honestly, it's a more peaceful way for her to go. My question today is if you knew when you were going to die, what would you do? Would you want to know when you're going to die? And if you did want to know and they gave you maybe an exact date, what would you do in that time? What if you were told it was a couple of months or a couple of weeks? What would you spend your time doing? Would you tie up those loose ends of your business to make sure that your loved ones are cared for? Would you spend your time getting revenge? I mean, revenge is a dish best served cold, especially when you wouldn't be here to reap the repercussions. What would you do if you were told that time on this earth was short? Say you were given a few weeks. It's enough time to maybe go on a spur of the moment holiday. It's maybe enough time to tell loved ones that you love each other. It might be time to have that long awaited reunion, to put away family beefs and disagreements that have maybe gone on for years, and finally there is a reason to just quash that. Death has a funny way of splitting people apart, but it also can bring people together. Now, I myself have often wondered if I was told that, God forbid, I had a debilitating disease or something that was going to take my life within a few weeks or maybe even 6 months. I've always wondered what I would do. I think the one thing is to remember the time you've had on this earth, as well as the last few months. Life on earth is short. The time we have together is short. If you take 100 years on this earth, and that is if you live that long, some people get 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Some people get less. If you go throughout history, some people died as a child. Life can be cruel, but life can also be kind. Now, I am not religious in any shape or form. And I was always told by select few people that you were picked to be on this earth for a reason. And that as you grew up and got older, the reason on this earth would become apparent to you. Whether it was, say, you were a scientist and you managed to cure a disease, whether you were a politician and you managed to stop a war. But what about the modern day man? What about just us lot, the common folk, the peasants of society? What do you think we bring to the table before we die? Families? Children? A legacy? Do we actually do anything to this earth to actually help it? Possibly. I mean, in our own ways, I think we do leave a mark individually on this planet. And I guess if you had a few months left, maybe you'd want to give your loved one a child. If you'd been planning to have children for a while, maybe you would try to give them a child. If you had a loved one and you'd thought about marrying them for years and years and never got round to it, maybe you'd marry. I've never really wanted to die It is a scary fact, and I don't think anybody wants to die. But I have spent a majority of my life around death. Some by my own choosing, having a fascination for serial killers and cults and life after death and graveyards and all that kind of thing. I've always had a close relationship with death. Some people find it healthy, some people find it unhealthy. I find sometimes some solace in being in a graveyard. I have said this before. There is no better place on earth to go with your own thoughts than a graveyard, because there is no one listening, there is no one making criticisms, there is no one judging you. A graveyard is the most quietest but noisiest place because it gives you the opportunity to think out loud, to talk, to have your emotions put right on your sleeve for the world to see. Healthy or not, maybe not. But as I was saying, if you were told how long you had left to live, what would you do? Where would you go? Who would you see? Unresolved differences? Loved ones? That boss that you always wanted revenge on? Or would you just take a time to reflect on the good that you had and decide that, you know what, I've had a good run on this earth. There's nothing else I want to do. I've seen and done everything I want. My life's complete, and just be happy to move on to whatever plane of existence follows this earth, which we will delve into that into a different topic of beliefs of the afterlife. But what do you feel is your purpose on this earth? How do you feel that you should leave your mark if you had only a select time left on this earth? How would you spend your last days? Have you ever thought of what you would do if you were told that you were going to die? It's a very, very bleak conversation, but it can also be an uplifting conversation. You know, that life may come to an end, but the years you had on this earth were worth it. Look what you've achieved. Look what you have. Look at all you've done. It can be a time for reflection as well as a time for mourning. Now, like I said, my nan may only have a few weeks to live, but she has lived a full life. She's had sons, she's had daughters, she's had a husband, she's had grandkids, she's had great grandkids. She has lived a life of plenty. And yes, she may only have a few weeks to live, but she has lived a legacy, and we are her legacy that are being left behind. And it is my job and my son's jobs and my grandchildren's jobs to live on in her memory, to celebrate my nan. She may not be gone yet, but we keep her in our hearts before, during, and after she passes. I don't want to continue to be negative about death. I think death should also be seen as a positive thing. Sometime, depending on whether you are sick or ill, it can also be a time for relief. It can be a time where you finally feel at peace. Now, I don't want to make this too much of a long video and dwell on death, as this series isn't just about dying, it's also about rebirth, re-enlightenment, and reflection. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments, what would you do if you knew when you were going to die, or you were told you had only a few weeks to live? What would you do with your time? And I will see you all very soon for another Graveyard Journal. Bye, guys.